I need to start off and just say that if you look at the dictionary meaning or what have you, for arbitration, it's just supposed to be an impartial third party to settle disputes. Now, I want people to think about what if there was universal arbitration, which there isn't right now, but let's put universal arbitration out there. That would mean if, let's say, somebody comes along and they're working at, I'll use Popeye's Fried Chicken as an example. So they go into Popeye's Fried Chicken, they show up late 4 or 5 days in a row. The manager says, "Why are you late?" And the person comes along and says, "Well, I'm late because I feel like it." And then they haul off and smack the manager. And they get fired. If there was universal arbitration, that means you'd have somebody to represent you. You could go in there and say the illogical or insane part. And I should say I'm starting off first because I'm the insane person of this panel. So anyway, when it comes to that, my argument might be, well, I smacked my employer, but I have the right to keep my job because Joe, who cooks, came into work 15 days late. Somebody else, Susie, was drinking on the job. You didn't fire her, so why am I fired just for showing up late, mouthing off? And that type of logic, they might say, you know something, you're right, Mr. Porter, you deserve to keep your job. That also means that if we had universal arbitration, which is the way things are going, I would be able to, let's say, come here, disrespect and disrupt the meeting right here, yell, scream, and holler if somebody gets an award, and once I'm told not to come back, I could have somebody rule in favor and say, no, that's not wrong, because you've had other people who came to the group and they might have fallen asleep in the middle of it, or they might have done this, or they might have done that, and they were told they could still come back through. So as insane as that might sound, arbitration, when it comes to the situations that we have, such as October 17, 2018, where Cleveland officer Alan Buford got his job back for killing Brandon Jones, age 18, in 2015, after his own partner Gregory King testified against him, said there was no major thing happening that Alan Buford should have been shot, or he should have shot and killed an individual. His own partner said that, but he was able to get his job back because of a logical argument of other police have done wrong and they weren't fired. Other police have assaulted people, you didn't fire them. Why did you fire him? An arbitrator ruled on that ruling. 2017, when the police union went to arbitration because they rejected the city's contract, which will go further in other panelists talking about that arbitration and that clause. But I'm going to go to October 22nd, 2018, when Euclid City police officer Michael Amiat was given his job back after the policeman repeatedly punched Richard Hubbard III. Facebook viral video. Now I'm using those type of things because arbitrator Gregory Sutzer ruled that although Amiat has been involved in 17 other incidents since 2016, they didn't deal with the officer then. Why are you coming down on him now? It's obvious he needed training. So pat him on the wrist, bring him back. We got that. How about the June 13, 2017, where arbitrator William Heekin reinstated 5 police officers involved in the November 2012 car chase, resulting in the deaths of Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams. Based on the fact other supervisors and other officers hadn't been reprimanded for things that they did wrong. And so, what do I look at right now? I'm one of those people that I have to say thank you to our keynote speaker, because what you did and what you said is so important. You see, I'm one of those people who believes in being an activist or being active. I believe if you get enough people to go to somebody's house or place of business, you can kind of change things. I'll give you the perfect example. Everybody's talking about arbitration like it's some sort of mystic ghost in the room or what have you. So for those who are putting this on Facebook Live or on video or you name it, let's talk about arbitrator Gregory Sutson, who dealt with the Euclid City police officer. How about the fact that he has a business at 8934 Brecksville Road, Cleveland, Ohio, 44141. There's a nice telephone number, 440-526-1505. If you're going to come through and disrupt our neighborhood, then while certain people deal with laws, while certain people start to lean on mayors, council people, and others in safety committee, while we do that, maybe we should take the time, 1 minute a day, call a phone number, find out an email, because a lot of these arbitrators have private practices at businesses. And lo and behold, if they work alongside somebody else, wouldn't it be nice to go and boycott that business and let them know? Cleveland, Ohio, Brecksville Road, 8934, with a 440-526-1505 phone number, that we're not happy because you are continuously making reinstatements that affect and cause a lot of us sleepless days and sleepless nights, because many of us don't know if justice will actually happen for us. As a matter of fact, here's something that I think is real fun while I'm talking about it. William Heeken, H-E-K-E-N, private practice. He charges about $1,400 per case. That's somebody interested we might want to see who's an arbitrator. Or how about Daniel Zeiser, Z-E-I-S-E-R, with a post office box of 43280, Cleveland, Ohio, 44143, which you can also call at 440-449-9311 to make appointments. My thing is this: we are the people who can empower each other and help make decisions working with other people. As a matter of fact, I appreciate what was said earlier. You see, there are certain things that we are our own media. If we're not our own media and not looking out for each other and spreading and conveying messages, we'll always be waiting for somebody else to tell our story for us. And as a matter of fact, with less than 10 seconds, when the Pattersons, after the Brown report, brought this information about our speaker, and I'd already read it in the Brown report, and you name it, but brought that information out. It was important that on the radio program, at least 2 out of 3 that I deal with, we start putting the stories out. Because if we don't, then I'm not active. You will probably never see me do too much Facebook Live or anything like that personally. I watch it, but it's kind of hard to hold a camera when you're very active doing things. And I wish to let you all know once again, if you can, take 2 or 3 minutes. Start calling, getting involved with arbitration, bugging people's businesses. And if you want, I'll gladly take some time off from work and help go and bother some of these people's businesses in person. My name is Alfred Porter Jr. That's JR period. Black on Black Crime Incorporated president. I definitely want to say when it comes to getting out here, being involved and standing up for your rights, I definitely approve this message. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I want to talk a little bit about sort of the different tools that we have to address this issue of arbitration. Arbitration, it's this fancy word, it's confusing, it's like this big thing out there, and I don't even completely understand what it is. I think everyday people don't totally get what it is, and the best and brightest, legal minds of our country really are stumped on how to take it down. They truly, truly, truly are stumped on how to get at this issue. Because, you know, this deference to police officers has been baked into Supreme Court cases, local court cases for decades, as you all know. I don't need to tell you. But so I want to talk a little bit about some other tools that we have, because I actually don't believe that the tools that lawyers have are the best tools that we have to fight this issue. I actually truly deeply believe that the tools that we as community organizers have are so much stronger. So the basics of arbitration, right, is that there's a collective bargaining agreement between the city of Cleveland or whatever city and the Cleveland Police Officers Union, right? There's a union agreement, and there's a line in that union agreement that's the arbitration clause. It says police officers can, you know, get arbitration when there's a complaint brought against them. In Cleveland, a recent review of arbitration cases was done, and it was found that Cleveland, the city, right, which when they go to arbitration, right, the city is actually arguing for the officer to be fired and the union is fighting back. Cleveland, the city, loses 2 out of every 3 cases that go to arbitration. 2/3 of every case, all cases, the city loses and the union wins, and the officer gets their job back. It was recently found that one of the many reasons that that happens is that the underlying investigations of the incidents are faulty. The investigation mechanisms that the Cleveland Department of Police has and that the city of Cleveland has are extremely faulty. The investigations that are being done are, you know, we in this room probably could do a much better job, right? And so without quality investigations, when you go to arbitration, yeah, you don't have good evidence, right? And it's easy, the city loses because the records haven't been kept of, you know, this is how many times this officer did this and whatnot. And so, you know, that I think is just one entry point, right? We can think about how can we fight to get those investigations better, right? We currently have a consent decree here in Cleveland, right, where the federal government came in, sued our city's police department because it was so horrible. And now, right, the city has agreed they must make 100 pages, a whole list of reforms that they have to make over the period of several years. And so those investigations are being looked at by the team of people who's leading the reforms. But all of us in this room can also help oversee those investigations. I was just talking to this gentleman over here who, and Dave Lima, I know you attend also the police review board meetings, right? These are meetings held, I think the third Wednesday of every month?
Third Wednesday. Every month, 10 o'clock at City Hall.
Okay, yes. And these are public meetings where investigations of officers' misconduct are like adjudicated, right? There's a panel of people looking at certain investigations saying, what should we do? We have the facts in front of us. Should the officer get fired or whatnot? And we can be there, and we can be there in that room, and we can, you know, try to chat with people afterwards and ask questions and make suggestions for how that might go smoother, right? So this is just one small example, but because this issue is so daunting and depressing so much of the time, I really want to point out those entry points that we all have power to change. I'll also note that the arbitrators, you mentioned the name of an arbitrator in Cleveland. Arbitrators are mutually agreed upon by the city and the police union. So the city that supposedly wants to, you know, be able to fire officers when the officer does something wrong has agreed to arbitrators that are not allowing officers to get fired, right? So I think that that's really important to know that, right, the city often says, oh, you know, it's the police union, right? It was the police union who got this officer's job back. It wasn't us. We weren't a part of it. they were part of it, right? They selected that arbitrator. And so I think that that's another entry point, right? How are we building power amongst ourselves to put pressure on the city, right? Every single city election that happens, how are we making policing an election issue? How are we making arbitration an election issue, right? There are so many ways that we can put pressure on the city so that it's no longer acceptable for them to say, oh, I'm sorry, that was the union that got this bad guy's job back. So that's another one. And also, and this is the one that is nearest and dearest to my heart because I believe it is the most powerful, is the way that we can help change narratives. And we can help change narratives around safety, right? For our country's whole history, who has owned the word safety? Who gets to define it? Prosecutors, judges, policemen, white people in power get to define what safety is, right? And they've stolen it from us. Safety is something that all of us want. And the people in power have taken that word from us, and they own it, and they wield it against us, right? When you hear public safety, what do you think about?
Police.
The city.
Yeah, the police. I think about mean people who are trying to lock up people that I care about, or who are trying to, have too big of a presence in the neighborhood, right? Public safety is, if we can remove it from that association, it's a beautiful thing, right? Public safety is feeling free to be who we are. It's feeling free to be walking in the streets. It's feeling that our schools are places where we can connect with people and ask questions, right? This is all safety. And so I think that actually the most powerful thing we can do is work really hard to take back the word safety. And I think that the way we do that is that anytime we're talking about the policy reforms that we want, we're using the language of safety. So when I talk about holding police officers accountable, I'm not just saying, yeah, we got to get those bad guys off the street. I'm saying we need streets that are safe, right? Because that's normally something that police say. They say we need safe streets, so I'm gonna arrest all these people. But no, I think that it's so crucial that we start to say, I want safe streets, and that means that when an officer overreaches, abuses their power, that's not safe, that they're not contributing to safety. So I want to lift up some work from the Ella Baker Center, which is based in Oakland, California, and they have been doing some of this work of taking back the word safety. And so they've made beautiful art. They have this whole campaign saying safety is, and they asked everyone on social media to say, what is safety to you? Right, I'll read off some and I'll pass these around. Safety is a world without profiling. Safety is what emerges as our most marginalized needs get met. Safety is caring for our neighbors. Safety is freedom to walk through our neighborhoods, and on, and I'll pass these around. And so I think that this work, and we've begun to try to do that at the ACLU of Ohio with some work we did in Toledo, I'll pass this around too, is really start changing the narrative and changing the culture. And I think really only then will we be successful in trying to put police unions and the process of arbitration in check. So I'll stop there and let Kareem take it away with his wisdom, but I'll pass these around and definitely take a look. I think this is what we have to be doing.
So they kind of covered a lot, but which helps me to kind of shorten my presentation so we can get to the questions and interaction aspect. I want to start off by saying that the purpose of arbitration is the process of bringing a business dispute before a disinterested third party. So I say that so that you can understand the contradictions or the hypocrisies that I'm about to bring about or expose. So First off, I want you to look at the fact that in regards to the arbitrators, 50% of the arbitrators are part-time. And they're part-time with their regular or main line of work is in the field that they're basically arbitrators for. So like when Al mentioned that, mentioned these arbitrators that have these firms, you're talking about folks that are lawyers that have contracts with the police unions. You're talking about folks that have jobs where they represent, particular, just various police interests, doing some lobbying, things of that nature. So, I don't understand how that person is an impartial third party. Mm-hmm. But I also want you to keep this in mind as well. 70% are white males. So when you think about that and you think about this situation that we find ourselves in regards to the interactions between law enforcement and people of color and the traditions of policing that go very far back, you'll understand that, the people that are 70% of the people that are presiding more than likely have a particular bias where they look at law enforcement as the frontline defenders for the war against those people over there. And so we have to keep that in mind in regards to some of the, the lack of diversity in regards to that board, in regards to arbitrators. That's 70%, that's huge. And what I also want to, I want to make folks understand in regards to these arbitrators. There was, I guess, a time in which some of them were not as bad as we've seen as of late. But once law enforcement, like I bring examples up like in New York, where you had law enforcement officers, gun-wielding folks with arrest powers and, the ability to investigate, know, and dig up all your information. These some particular officers in the city of New York actually did their protest, and they protested at an arbitrator's home. And actually, I'm mentioning this one, but that's not the only instance. And just think about that. Gun-toting, people with arrest powers are upset with you and they're in front of your home. Now, that doesn't have to happen to you, but to know that they're doing that and know that they oftentimes act not always in conjunction with the law, but just their personal feelings, when you know you're dealing with people like that, that intimidates you. That influences your decision making. So, got a whole lot of arbitrators out there that took notice of that, and believe you me, so some of those who might be impartial to some degree, those are the things that they're thinking about in the back of their minds when they make their decisions. What we heard mentioned was, in regards to the collective bargaining agreement when Emma was up here. She mentioned that, that is an agreement that is between the city and the police union. And understand that we're going to see on the news, we're going to see a chief of police that will mention the fact that, he wrote this officer up. He fired that officer. You're going to hear a mayor talk about he sent the order down to fire this officer. And they always blame arbitration. So, first off, that's not your get out of jail free card. Right. Because it's you who, at the end of every contract, failed to negotiate a more favorable contract for the people. Secondly, what you have to look at is that if they genuinely wanted to do something about this, there's a way to even circumvent that, the problems with arbitration, that I think is just only used in some of the most egregious cases. And that is, you give him, you charge him. Like, not, hey, you're violating policy, so I'm gonna write you up. But, you know, in the city of Cleveland, you know, the municipalities, they preside over misdemeanor court. The county courts preside over, you know, our felonies. So understand that they can still be charged with a misdemeanor. And if you charge them with the misdemeanor, that's a fireable offense. And it's something that arbitration cannot circumvent because it's not necessarily a policy issue. So that means that if they're found guilty, you're more inclined to be able to make that stick. And if you write policy within the police codes that specifically state that these policies are fireable, or these violations are fireable offenses, there's no way around it. So I mean, it's real simple. Like somebody who, you know, is not a lawyer, like, you know, I'm not a lawyer, I just play one on TV. But I know nothing about this, about being a lawyer, but that's just logical. And so if I can figure this out, and the people that I work with, my peers, if we can figure this out, why isn't that think tank, you know, administration, why aren't they figuring this out? The reason is because it's purely political. They don't want to. So, you know, I really want folks to think about the contradictions, you know. How do we combat this, especially in a Rust Belt city like we live in, where you got a lot of folks that are defeated, you know, defeated mentality. Many don't believe in the process anymore. It's like, why bother? You know, I took offense to a lot of things that I saw this past election season, where there was a lot of shaming of folks in regards to not voting. They don't take into account that folks are disenchanted with the process because the process has been failing them this long. It's not that simple, just saying, hey, folks died so you have the right to vote. It's more complicated than that. And so what is our responsibility is to explain, this is why we need you to vote, because we've got a plan in place where we're gonna dethrone this elected official, that elected official, and then once we get them in place, we've already been in talks with them, and we have these certain policies in which we're going to get them to push and implement, which is going to, so this is a process. And this is what we're going to do in order to affect change. The message of just vote and just vote blue, that's not going to work. You know, because that's where the problem comes in. So when folks say just vote, and here's why, and this is what we're working towards, that's something that folks can grab onto. And you know, I think that that's the way to go. We owe it to folks. That's way better than shaming. That's way more efficient. And you know, because the other way is just to simplify it. So if we want to affect change, it's going to start there. It's going to start with having these, basically having meetings, having these kinds of interactions, so that, you know, maybe something that you've heard from, you know, some of us that have gotten up before you today, that gives you an idea. You don't have to credit us with the suggestion or the idea, because in the end, if you're in the right place at the right time with the right people, and you're able to say these things and maybe get them interested in it and get them to push it, we all win. So I don't care who the author of it is. So we need to keep having these interactions, keep having these meetings, and and folks need to just do a little bit of homework, master some of this material, you know. This is your community too. I'm a family man. I've got children, and they have needs, and so sometimes they pull me. My son's over here, my 5-year-old's in the other room, so that's why you'll notice I keep looking over there, been looking over there. But my it's, if he was sick, I wouldn't be here right now. So if Kareem's not going to be here today, who else was going to be up here? So, folks need to know what the heck they're talking about, so that when, you have some fast-talking elected official or appointed person of the administration, someone who, just knows how to talk a certain way and kind of, disarm you, you'll be armed with the facts, you'll be armed with logic, and you'll be able to deal with them. So, that's pretty much all I have to say in regards to that, but I want to leave you with one more point, and that is currently under Trump, the Trump administration, from the time they started campaigning to after they came in and he had appointed his AG, his Attorney General, they pledged support, unconditional support, to the police, to law enforcement. So, just understand that. That is huge, because that gives them, a blank check.
That's right.
Understand that, and couple that with, basically, with what they call, basically the Federal Arbitration Act. But the Federal Arbitration Act overrides state efforts of reform. So keep that in mind. So, we've got to